Hey, what's up everybody? Unrested here, and I'm actually in my office right now, so I gotta keep the volume a little bit low. I can't talk as normally as loud as I do, but I thought I'd just give you a chance to see the inside of a teacher's office in Japan. They are messy. Honestly, any one I've ever been to in my life in Japan has been super messy, so maybe that's just across the board. Any of you who work in schools here too who watch my videos, you can go ahead and comment and tell me if yours is not messy or is always clean, but yeah. Everyone I've ever worked in is super messy. My desk is super clean and organized if you take a look inside, but otherwise they're pretty messy. Um, as for today, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what it's like to work inside of a school, what kind of environment you have, and like maybe some things that are like taboo and stuff, things you don't want to do that maybe are okay in America or vice versa actually. Things you'll be surprised about here that you might not have expected were totally okay. Well, let's start through each level because I've actually worked as low as like even small children just above 2 years old all the way up to taught adults before. So starting at the lowest level with we'll say Youchien, kindergartners. Kindergartners actually start really young here. I've talked about that before, so that's not really what's important about the topic here, but it's about how the classes go. And for the most part, I mean, there's not much you really can do at this point aside from, relaying repeated information to kids at that age, which are things usually like cards, words, single words, not sentences or anything like that, but just getting them to recognize a picture to a word. And that's pretty much what the day is made out of. I mean, it's broken up into different ways of doing it via song and cards and stuff like that, but for the most part, I mean, it's pictures. And for that age, something that really surprised me that I wasn't used to from America, because I've also taught in America too, don't forget that, is that Japanese schools are really open to being touchy-feely with the kids. And I don't mean that in any sort of perverted sense, please don't take this the wrong way, but I mean it in a sense of they like you to really roughhouse with the kids, something I wasn't expecting at all. Kids jumping all over you, grabbing you, climbing up on top of you, and you can wrestle them, tickle them, throw them around, have a good time with them, really like horseplay with them all through the day and stuff. And parents actually really, they look for that. They want that actually. I've actually had friends who were actually yelled at for not, holding and hugging and giving the kids, big hugs at the end of the day. And, if they saw them even on the street, they had to do it and stuff like that. So it was something I really didn't expect that they were, for the most part, I just talked about in the last JFAQ that PDA is kind of frowned upon. But with this, they were totally into you going up, running up, give that kid a big hug, squeeze them, hold them up, pick them in the air, and all kinds of stuff like that. They're really into that. Also, another thing that they're really based on is physical activity for that age. They really are keen on them getting a ton of physical activity, getting a chance to go out to the park, exercises inside, and even practicing for sports day. Moving on to the next level, you've got elementary school level. And for elementary school level, things start to change a little bit. There's still a lot of activities that go on through the day. They still have their yearly undokai, which is sports day, a day in which they present little races, exercises, and relays that they've practiced beforehand and then compete with as teams as a school. There's also another part of the day called, part of the year called Hapyokai. And Hapyokai is actually a play that they practice for, usually each grade level giving a more complex, longer, and more difficult play that they show for the parents later. A lot of elementary school is based around getting the kids to practice things to show their parents the skill level they've come to. And most of the year is taken up by practicing for each one. Some schools I've been to, it starts out usually with undokai being the first one, that's sports day. The next one usually happens to be a Christmas play or a Christmas celebration, I should say winter or winter solstice celebration. There is no religious connection to anything that they would do like that. The next one is usually the end of the year hapyokai, and like I said, that's like a big play pretty much. It's the end of the year play that they put on for parents. Moving on, the next level that we get to is obviously junior high school. The grades are a little bit different from what you'd expect in the States, or I don't know, maybe some states actually work this way, I'm not completely sure. But usually you've got kindergarten level 1 to 3. From kindergarten you go to elementary school, that's first grade to sixth grade. Then you go to junior high school, which is first grade to third grade, okay? Starting with the first grade on up to third grade, things become less focused on showing the parents what they can do and become more focused on club time and sports time. Also, as far as extracurricular activities, clubs become an important connection to actual studies. For example, there's a history club, there's an art club, there's an English club. And these kids usually start this to connect to their studies in the school, and usually because it's what's going to be their focus when they move on to their next school or possibly even college. Of course, emphasis on schoolwork is always important in Japan, and usually their levels of math are already surpassing what we'd be doing in Western countries. Of course, English is much lower on the scale, and recently Japan was even ranked below Cambodia as far as their English education. So obviously it's still not that great here. Um, as for other things, things become very, very focused on memorization in junior high school level. I mean, these kids become memorization machines. It's memorization nonstop all day, and it all comes down to tests that are the equivalent to the American FCAT, and that's kind of like an entry level exam for moving on to the next grade, or if they so choose, to move on to high school, which we'll move on to next and is not compulsory in Japan. That means that you are not required to go to high school, and high school is not free in Japan. Schooling by the government actually stops at junior high school level, third grade junior high school level. After that, it is a student's choice and of their own effort that they continue on to high school. High school then only lasts for 3 years. It's not a 4-year segment. It again goes from first grade to third grade, and now things become very focused on what they're going to major in college. Sometimes kids can even choose high schools that focus in whatever their line of study will be for the future. There's schools that are focused in human rights, schools that are focused in only English, and of course they speak great English, and even schools that are focused in science, history, etc., etc. Kids become very hardcore into their clubs and sports, even more so than junior high school, to a point that they usually take up their entire weekend almost. Um, Obviously, things start to become sectioned into electives and even become a focus of study as they move on to making the decision and passing the tests to get into college. And that's a big part of high school, is getting ready for those tests to get into college, because the tests to get into college in Japan are ferociously hard. I mean, you cannot imagine how hard these kids study. I remember my wife telling me how hard she studied to get into college for her. Now, mind you, she went to a really nice college. I'm not going to say where exactly, but it was a nice one. She said every night almost she would stay up till 3 a.m. studying. Okay? And we're talking a kid who wasn't even 18 yet. Okay? Stayed up till 3 a.m. every night studying to pass those tests. Moving on to college, something that is not actually as common as you would see in Western countries is kids going into college. More so, they go into an equivalent trade school as well. And sometimes even the high school that I just mentioned before can also act as the trade school. But if they so decide, kids can go on to the next level of either choosing a trade school or college. College, of course, works the same way as it does in a Western country. You choose your degree, you focus in on it, and you eventually get the equivalent to a 4 years bachelor's degree. Of course, there is the same levels that you can move on the echelon up to master's and PhD, but obviously that's just as hard to do here as it is to do in America. The actual college itself, from what I've been told from Japanese people, is not even nearly as hard as the test to get into the college. I have not confirmed this myself. I have not gone to college in Japan. I do not know about getting into college in Japan, so please do not ask me. There are other J-vloggers out there, such as Radri, BetamaxDC. Those guys know about college here because they actually went to college here. I actually have no information on going or entering or getting into a college. And besides, if it's your college, you should be doing the research, right? I mean, that's a huge part of your life. But anyway, like I was saying, this is the point where they choose college or a trade school. Trade schools, again, are a focus to the point that it will most likely be the job that you take after you graduate. By focus, I mean something like a trade as being a plumber, a carpenter, something like that, which is actually quite a good trade to get into. And that's why it becomes such a quick focus right after high school. So that pretty much covers us all the way from kindergarten on up to college. Of course, like I said, there are higher echelons to move on to, but we'll cover those in another JFAQ. As for now, This is Unrested, this is JFAQ, and I will see you next time.